Welcome to Self Perfected.
All right. I hit go live. What's happening? Oh, doesn't
Hey,
wanna go
everybody.
live.
This
It's
is called the
recording.
ESG episode, where we boost our ESG through the roof one day a year. So then the rest of the year we just coast.
Hang on, I gotta hit the go live button again.
Well, you
just-
work on that while we
Yeah.
talk.
Well, we
Yeah, you can talk to the people. I think they'll like that.
Hey guys, you might have noticed I got a new hat.
didn't you get a new cow?
Yes,
You
How's the
may
new
have
cow?
noticed that as well.
it's pretty good. They haven't chosen their cow gender yet.
Is that what the milk has done to you? Your eyebrows?
The milk?
Did something? Yeah, the milk. Is
Yes.
it changing your eyebrow color?
Yeah, I rub it on my eyebrows every night.
Okay, so that's like slime from from bacteria. I get it.
How do you
The
get that
red,
blue?
It's the
that's
calcium.
just an allergic reaction to
Actually, this
sucking on the cow's teeth.
This happens here in Florida. We have a lot of calcium in our water, and then sometimes it'll give you like a pink kind of slime. I see that's what's going on here on your eyebrows. It's you should probably cut back on the calcium a little bit.
It happens.
Yeah.
You say cow semen? Is that what you said?
I did not. I did
So
not. say
anyways,
calcium.
Because I was wondering how'd you get cow semen if it was a female
Cow
cow.
semen yum. You see that back there? That's
Yeah.
the time portal I opened.
Uh-huh.
Okay, here's the cow.
I can't see nothing.
It's just a time portal. The cow is a code
God
word.
damn it, Zoom.
Mm,
Cameron. Okay,
you have
remember I was
officially
saying.
disappeared.
Okay, remember I was saying this is the ESG episode. You're talking about cows
Oh,
too much.
Yeah, shit. Don't have
Guys.
cows. Don't drink milk. Eat crickets. Hey, I saw this interesting thing randomly on Facebook, and it was talking about, now I don't know what specifically products use this, but they were talking about these bugs that grow on cactus, and they like scrape them off, and then they crush them up, and it makes like the red dye.
Oh yeah.
Food.
All the time. That's like in every, well, if you go to like a health food store, it'll have that bug as the coloring or whatever. Yeah.
It was making
looks
it
like
seem
the-
like they use it in like Skittles or something, or M&Ms. It said M&M specifically.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
it's
sure
like
they
the
use
not
it for a
good
lot
red
of
dye?
things.
Yeah,
no,
Well,
but
I'm just saying, like, we've been
It's,
eating
like, really
bugs this whole
common.
time.
they also get red dye from butts, from like raccoon butts or something.
Also natural flavoring from
Now you're
raccoon
speaking my
butts
language.
and possum
Yeah,
butts.
it's like they squeeze the glands and
Yeah.
they get this red dye out of it.
Imagine
When you
that's
say
your job.
they,
You do that
that's
every
just
day.
their
Starbucks-
preferred pronoun.
Starbucks drinks have that in there.
Yeah.
So
Also
Very
natural
Imagine
inclusive,
flavoring.
that's
you know?
your job. And every day that's your life. Just doing that.
You just express the glands of like a raccoon.
Yeah.
Like you're
beaver,
at a party,
or maybe it's beaver butt. I'm gonna have to look that up.
beaver butt. You're at a party and they're like, "So what do you do?" And you're like, "I squeeze beaver buttholes."
And it goes
If
into
you're-
the food that your children eat.
If you're at the right
Yes.
party, that is a turn
And they're
on. If
like,
you're-
"Wow, what a shitty job." And you're like, "Dude, you fucking eat it."
There's like M&Ms on the table.
This article
This is-
says beaver's sac excretions have flavored more food than you realize.
That's what it is.
So-
It's food flavoring,
Beef.
and that's the natural food flavoring, by the way.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
don't
but
want to
no,
Oh,
wake
it
up
says
with it.
natural.
Yeah, natural flavorings. That's what it is, and then they like tweak it to make it taste like, I don't know, some sort of fruit or something, and you're like, wow, this is
Oh,
so
it's
good.
like apple, but then they make it green apple.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
makes sense actually. Like when you look at that word natural, because they've distorted it. right? Because you have
Exactly.
like look at what is considered natural now. Just in terms of social, cultural. Did you guys see that thing about those? I didn't really look too far into it. I just saw a bunch of people talking about it. These like two dads, these gay dudes who like adopted some kids and then were like apparently pimping them out and stuff. You guys hear
Dang.
about or making like child pizza? For those of you who know what I
Dang.
mean? Yes.
I did
know.
see that. I did.
And
You know what
yeah.
was really sad about it was they were special needs kids. They weren't just like first they adopted these kids and then they were special needs kids. And one thing that I was saying to Christine was like how we were talking about, you and I and Avery were talking about years ago, how if you look into what was going on in Haiti after the earthquakes with this orphanage where they were bringing these children to the US, but it turns out that a lot of these kids weren't actually orphans and their parents were looking for them and they were basically being human trafficked to the US, and there was a strong connection, actually not just a connection. Go ahead.
Yeah. Wasn't a strong connection to
Certain peoples.
Well, I'll okay. Parliament,
Uh-huh.
the band.
Yeah. Oh, George. Yeah.
Last
yeah,
name.
yeah.
His last name.
His last name.
Unrelated.
Unrelated.
Someone famous. I think you're the
Yes.
only person who knows what I'm talking about.
Nobody got that at all.
Does it
'Cause
rhyme with
nobody
Minton?
listens.
It
Does it
does
rhyme
rhyme
with
with
Minton?
Minton. It does.
Yeah. But anyway, like the Clintons. I said it.
Now you got me sweating.
Now,
ESG just
Now we're
dropped
banned.
so bad.
Anyway, but they're lawyers. They lawyered up for this orphanage or whatever, and they were really strongly connected because apparently the kids were going to go to some foundation of theirs, whatever. And this is not the only instance of this happening. It's just probably one of the most popular. I remember the conversations that we were having about how adoption is really just a racket in many instances, not all the time, of course, obviously, but it is a big racket for people who want to abuse children, where they can find children from, a foreign country that the people don't really have much money or whatever, and they can just take the kids and traffic them for whatever
it
purposes.
makes sense because it's one of those things that we get super emotional about, where it's like, oh, it's so good to adopt, it's like one of those kind of things. So it makes sense that would be a point that's like super abused. It's always like that. Like it covers up the actual reality of it.
I just want to say this for those of you who remember long ago, this guy called Epstein, whatever his name is, right? And people have completely forgotten about him now. But one of the things that he was doing was he was going to parents who he knew didn't have money, offering them like 10K, 20K, whatever, to borrow their kids for a period of time, a few months, whatever.
Really?
And the parents knew what was going on.
I didn't know about that. See, that's what always confused me when people talk about like him and like being a pedophile. And I was just like, because of like some pictures of like a young woman with Bill Clinton on a plane or something. I was like, are people just exaggerating that?
Yeah.
Because I never really like studied what's going on with all. I mean, I'm not under some illusion that there wasn't some shady shit going on and like weird stuff with elite people, but I was like, is it actually like an underage child thing? But it sounds like there actually was that stuff. I mean, I don't know about it.
They were more like, from what I read and understood, it was more like teens, young teens.
But still underage.
But they were underage for sure. But I mean,
Yes.
also in certain states, you can get married at like 16 years old, which is definitely underage.
Not to Bill Gates. I think it's got to be to like a 19-year-old or something,
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, now there's a whole Netflix special on the Epstein stuff, and there was a specific girl that did like a whole expose on him because she was one of the victims, and Bill Clinton. And then was it the royal family that was also involved? Like the prince or something like that?
Prince Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah, he also was
Hmm.
like very much involved. And I mean,
There's
they
got
just
to be
totally got
so
away with
much
it.
more to it, because if it's a Netflix documentary, who like Obama's like an executive producer at Netflix, or I don't know, whatever the details are, like, and the Clintons have like, don't they have like a thing on Netflix, or it's on something? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's got to be one of those. Remember what that guy said? Limited hangout.
Limited hangout. Yeah.
That's got to be what
exactly
it is. Where it's like they're kind of putting this out there to give you some of the truth that's out there. So the reality of it is
So you won't go searching
buried
for
in the way.
more. It's
Yeah, it's like I saw the Netflix documentary. I know all about it now.
it's funny
That's
because
exactly the attitude people have.
Yeah.
There's so many people that like will like, oh, I watched it on Netflix.
but you know where that comes
Yeah.
from, right? Like that attitude comes from social conditioning of like school, you know? Like
Mm.
if you think about it, when
I know all
when
about
you-
World War II because I read about it in school.
right. It's really this social conditioning of you don't actually want to look into things, you don't actually want to learn, you want to get like, can we just fucking get through this? That's how you feel at school. When you're a child, any parent can probably attest to this. A child will just start asking why, and they will not fucking stop. They are so curious. They want to know more and more and more. And it's just like, okay, but why that? Oh, but I don't understand this. Give me this, give me that, and until they have the whole picture, and then they're satisfied. When you go to school, it's the exact opposite of that.
Mm.
So that when you're given just a little bit, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. No, I get it. I got the story, right? If you were
Wow.
actually still like intact, your curiosity is still intact, and your ability to actually understand information still intact, or actually supported rather and developed, then you would care to the extent of like, wait, why is this happening? Let's get to the bottom of this and let's stop this from ever happening again. Right. But that's not where most people go. Think about it in the terms of like, oh, this Epstein thing or whatever. People are okay with, they went to court. I have no idea who the names on this client list was, and it's sealed, and I'm never supposed to find out. And those people will never be prosecuted or anything. And that's okay. That's fine. But in real, like, okay, if you actually cared, we could get to the bottom of that, of who are all these people involved? Why is this happening? Why is this allowed to happen? Let's stop that from ever happening again and make it so that this is not a thing anymore. We could do that, but people don't care because they've been conditioned not to care.
Well, think about this too.
Well, by the very people who are involved with all of it. Who do you think is
Exactly.
making the documentaries or funding it or allowing it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, now with ChatGPT, look at this. It's like the same thing where people go, oh, okay, well, I want to know about this. And then they just accept that, oh, this
Right.
AI thing. Wow, look how amazing it was. It gave me and I could tell it to me in the form of a story. Wow. And then it's the same.
What's funny is ChatGPT doesn't even like cite sources. It just like spits out all this information. And what do people always tell you when you like share information, facts?
Yeah.
It's like, where are your sources? Where did a scientific experiment like that come from, or that study?
When it's a
Like,
person, yeah.
right. No,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying like the person,
Yeah.
To
like-
another person,
yeah.
Like to me, like I made a
Well,
video.
what are your sources? And it's like, but
Yeah.
you don't ask that for an AI.
It was so funny because I had a video that went really viral, and people were like, a lot of the comments were, what are the sources? What's the name of the experiment? Blah 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 blah. Right? Because I was talking about an experiment and just like talking about a certain concept within the experiment, and people are like, oh, I hate when people share things like this and they don't share sources. I go and I click on their fucking profile, they have no fucking posts at all. It's
Yeah.
like, who are you? You're nobody.
It's
You like,
probably a bot
it's
that's
just a
trying
fucking
to
troll.
stop you. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you fucking anyway. But I wanted to say this, to this point. The reason why the world is the way that it is right now is because you don't care. That's it. Because if you actually cared, we could live heaven on earth now, or at least within a couple of years, we could sort everything out. Within a few short years, we could sort everything out. And the reason why that's not happening is you don't care. You don't care at all. That's why it's just like,
Drake, I do care. Don't you see this?
that's the extent of people that people care too, you know, to
Mhm.
that
I mean,
extent.
obviously,
that's
I care a little bit more than you guys. I mean,
like,
And then
what is it?
their form of caring is getting a jab and then wearing their mask, and then they feel it's that emotional feeling. Y'all remember this back? Like it's that whole like, oh, we're in this together. Come on, do it for the greater good. So it's hijacked by that energy,
Yeah,
and it's all missing
which
the whole.
it was
fucking point.
all just the person being afraid.
Yeah.
right.
It's like
Yeah,
they're saying we're in this together, but literally they were just afraid. They were just participating in fear. Plus, there was the morality part and the feeling like you're the good person and all that too. But it was really
Mhm.
just straight up fear. Because I saw even people that I had listened to, or not listened to, but watched and followed and so forth online,
I know who you're talking about.
go into that. Yeah,
Scott.
like Scott Adams.
Scott Adams. Yeah,
Yeah, like I'm like, all right, well, you're done, dude. Like you fucking
it was
lost it.
like
Yeah.
when he started doing all that, I was just like, fuck this guy. Like, like he was cool for a little while. He had like these analytics of this and this, and then he started going into that. I was like, fuck that guy. You know what's funny? I was talking to like a friend of my mother's who we've known for a long time, family friend, right? And we were talking about, so Christine and I went over for dinner, and we started talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson, because we weren't really sure where they stood, because they're a bit older, and they also live kind of a little bit out of the city, and so we weren't really sure where they stood as far as like vaccines and all this. But we
Oh,
were
I thought you were going to say like, whereas the nature of the distribution of mass within the galactic core,
yeah, we weren't
because
sure
that
where
would
they
be
stood on
something
that
Neil
either.
deGrasse Tyson should fucking talk about, not anything else. Right?
Right. And it was funny because I brought up Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he's like, "Oh, I went to go see Neil deGrasse Tyson," and I was like, "Oh shit, here we go, right?" And then we started talking about that interview that they did with Patrick Bet-David, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I went to see Neil deGrasse Tyson. That guy is so far politically aligned left that he cannot see facts anymore." Like that, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." He's like, we went and saw him, and we thought we were gonna see, like, because his son is like a really into Neil deGrasse Tyson, or he was anyway. And he was like, we thought we were gonna see a speech by an astrophysicist, and we were really excited to learn.
Also, they bought these tickets like pre-COVID.
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
it got
yeah.
canceled because of COVID. So, they were going
Yeah.
based off of pre-COVID Neil deGrasse Tyson.
That is a long sales cycle. Holy shit.
Yeah. So they kept pushing it back. They had VIP tickets to go
And
see
they're
it.
like, I don't want this version of Neil deGrasse Tyson. God damn
See,
it.
they said the first hour, they thought they were going to learn about space and all the fun stuff. They're like, they've got a
So
telescope.
they wanted to be entertained by fantasy. Okay.
So wait, hang on. They're the kind of people, like, they live far enough where they don't have a lot of light pollution, where they can point out like, hey, that's Venus, that's Mars, that's Jupiter. Like they're into just looking
I
up
know
at
what
the
that's
sky.
like.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they thought, hey, they're going to tell them about space. He said the first hour was slideshow of Neil
Him wearing
deGrasse saying the people who don't want to wear masks should be really used to wearing masks, and click the slideshow, and it's just KKK members as a slide. This is what the first
What?
hour
Are you kidding me?
of them going to see Neil deGrasse Tyson was. Yeah. And
Did anyone like boo? Did anyone heckle him?
This family friend said, he's like, at that moment, I was like, I think we should leave.
They're like, I think we should take these off.
take these. Yeah, exactly. But so
That's insane.
right. So
That's actually pretty funny. It'd actually be interesting just to watch it. You know what I mean? Like as if you're just thinking of it as like a stand-up act or something.
That would be funny. Like,
that's crazy though.
Man, I forgot why I was bringing that up. I forgot why I was bringing that up. Oh, because of caring. That's what we were talking about. We were talking about like pretending to care, essentially. And it's like it has become, somebody was talking about this. Who was talking about this, Christine? We were listening to something where they were talking about Oh no, it was something that you sent, Cam. It was about like how the left and right. I think it was Brett Weinstein talking about it. How you need, or at least in our current society, you have the progressives, the quote unquote progressives, because he was saying this point of he's a radical that wants to live in a world where he can be a conservative, right?
Mm.
And he was saying basically the point of like conservative is supposed to be like, hey, this is really nice, we want to keep this here, let's stay here. And progressive is supposed to be like, well, we need to expand in this and help people in this and grow in this and grow in that. And it sounds really nice, but then you get to a certain point where at a certain point it's like you can't just keep always looking for something more in that sense, right? Because then you're not ever going to reflect on where you're at right now and see how good it is. You're always just looking for something more in that sense. That's the essence of what he said. And it was Owen Benjamin actually that we listened to last night, where he gave this speech at some Republican conference, and it was cute. It was really nice actually. He was
Who gave
talking
the
about
speech?
Owen Benjamin gave a speech,
Okay.
and
Recently?
yeah, like only a few months ago. It wasn't too
Okay.
long ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought he was
Um,
like fully banned.
Well, I mean, for the most part, right? But like people like him, and it was in his home state.
Hmm.
But he was giving the speech, and the speech was basically like this. He did talk about his banning and all of that stuff, but he talked about how men are like capitalists and women are communists, right?
Mhm.
And he was saying how women, like, they're like, when you go out and you're hanging out with women, when it's just a bunch of women, it's whoever's the lowest, that's the vibe of the group, right? So women are just like, I'm having, Becky's having a bad day. Oh no, everybody crowd around Becky. Oh, we're leaving, you know. And that's how women are. And it's really great for the home and really great for like taking care of other people and all this, right? But men on the other hand, they're like straight up like, oh, who's the best? Who's the best? I want to be around that guy. Yeah, yeah. You're having a bad day? Fuck off.
Everyone crowd
Don't,
around and like kick that person.
yeah, like don't stand
Throw
near me.
rocks.
You're putting off my vibe. Don't, you know, like that's how men operate. It's like really just like what's the best, right? And so that's great in a different sense, right? But he was saying it's like we brought the feminine into our government, where it's like, oh, let's take care of everybody, and then like you're losing the sight of, okay, but we actually need to make sure that we're actually doing things the best way, not just lowering everything down to make everybody feel included.
And
Yeah.
then now, even with a man in presidency, this man is demented. So it's like the example of a man that should be leading us to the promised land. He can't even put together sentences, you know. And it's 2023, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I really think you said this on one podcast before, Kim, but it's like this idea that there was some book that you read that I think it was a Philip K. Dick book, where they realized that the president wasn't actually the president. It was just like some hologram or whatever, and the people didn't care. I feel like that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, it was almost like everyone who found out in the book was like, yeah, I thought that was the case, but it's like they never said anything about it.
okay,
They're like not
okay.
surprised.
Yeah, like we could get to that point right now where like they'd be like, yeah, Biden is actually just a puppet. Like literally, like we've been putting our hand up his asshole. And
I mean,
like,
it's so obvious.
right, and then
Everyone knows, but then the people who are on the side of, let's say, that side, they're okay with that because they just want their feelings and their agendas and so forth pushed to other people.
even the people who are quote unquote outraged about it or whatever is like, what are you actually doing?
Right.
You know? Like,
So this
yeah.
is something, I think we were talking about this with Avery or somebody, but so for those of you who can obviously see, Biden is a puppet, And both sides don't really give a fuck. They're just pushing their own agenda so they can further their money, so they can further their survival. And that's what the system is. The way that we get people woke up to really what's going on and really giving them the opportunity to show that they care and really take responsibility, it's not from mass marketed messages. It's not from this podcast going viral. It's not from getting 10,000 people into Self-Perfected, even though all of that stuff can happen. It comes back to you, the person listening to this thing, deliberately going out every single day and finding the people around you who are questioning things, and then walking them through how they can actually change for themselves, so then they can go change it for other people.
And that's why you have to use the tools and walk the points, because you'll find the points within you that hold you back from that, the fear, limitation, all those points. So it's not just about, okay, I'm just going to go tell everybody to do it. It's about you're doing it, and then you're sharing that point. And then along the way, you're getting all the things that you actually, I want to say that actually you want, but maybe people don't know what they want. And that doesn't mean to say, oh, we're going to decide what you want. It's just, we're honest with ourselves about what we actually want, which is what everybody wants, which is family, community, purpose, and this, I think that this is the big shift now. Cause like Drake made this point about caring, right? And it's doing a great job of caring about cereal or whatever that is. I'm assuming it's granola, actually. Yeah. Is it the homemade? Of course it is.
Of
No
course, it's
bugs in
homemade
that.
granola. We don't eat anything but homemade granola in this house. Like, I am a
You guys are so
granola mill factory inside my body. Christine creates the granola and I break it down.
Yeah, we're very crunchy.
The granola is very crunchy. I love that granola because Katie makes that. And then when it runs out, I'm like, need more granola. So as I was saying, I think I can see the big shift now is for everybody. And this is why, like Mitch, you were bringing it back to the individual point. It's not about, and the point that Drake was bringing, people don't care. It's like, it's not about, it is about things externally changing, but it's not about sitting back and expecting or hoping or wishing or demanding that things change externally. It's about changing yourself and giving yourself the purpose of then supporting the external point to change. I made a video like years ago about, or actually, I don't know if it was years ago. Yeah, it was probably at least a year ago. I can't remember what it was called. It was like something about embracing self, or no, it was like changing yourself, or I forget what it was called. But my point in it was, people try to dichotomize things. Like it's either about changing the world or it's about changing yourself. And the people who think that they are really understanding how to change things, it's like, no, you have to focus on yourself. You got to change yourself and that will change the world. But they don't include the world externally as themselves. So in other words, if you're participating in a world where there is, let's just say poverty, for example, that is something you're allowing. And it may not be like you directly are creating it, but you're still participating in this world, just going along with it and allowing it. You're not doing anything whatsoever. And then, of course, person might feel like, well, how can I, as an individual, have any impact? And that's what you brought in, Mitch. It's like, right. So you start changing yourself. And then the question is, what do you change? Number one, start actually caring. Actually give yourself this purpose. Instead of the purpose, like up until this point in history, it's been a, let's just say, valid purpose from the perspective of your life, reality, and everything would work. See, the train's coming by. Get on the train, right?
It just works. I was hoping. I was praying.
Don't let the train leave you on the station, right? It's like you could just get up, you could go to work. Like what do you imagine about the 1950s? It's like people went to work, they came home, they had a family. I mean, obviously a lot of that is just imagery impulsed into us, right? But no one really questioned the system to a large degree because it worked. And even you could say, well, but this, you always have these boomers, people like, oh, the 60s, those were the days, and like all this shit. And you're like, that was 60 years ago. No more now, right? Wait, 60s, yeah, 20.
Yeah,
so
60
60 years ago. 60 years ago and counting. So
Yeah.
that led to this. So clearly it didn't change anything, but also like all of those people dropping acid and free love and all that stuff, that was all happening in San Francisco. That was like the big center point of it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so, okay, now look at San Francisco. Now look at Silicon Valley. It became the hub. Like you could see that, right? But
Yeah.
the people who were the most like fight the government, fight the corporations, all that stuff became all of that to the next level, because they
Yeah.
didn't have any real purpose or real principle. It was just based on a reaction, and no
Yep.
actual solution of what was best for everybody was implemented or presented. And so everyone just stayed in survival mode with no real purpose beyond that. And then that became the point that was exploited and manipulated over time, which now we're facing a point where, because we haven't considered what was best for everybody, everything is starting to break down. Right.
It's so interesting, that point of like the reaction, because that's all that people can consider. It's like people can't consider anything outside black or white, or anything outside of this or that reaction. Like, we talked about this before, and we've met many people who they were unschooled because their parents were having a reaction to school, and their reaction was unschool. And then the kids grow up and they do not like how they were raised. A lot of them are like reacting to, this was not good for me. Like Christine and I talked with a family where they were saying all their siblings were unschooled, and all of them decided to go back to school and get their GED because they felt completely unprepared for the world, and they wanted to just get jobs and fit in. Obviously there's a lot of factors involved with that, right? But it's like, then they put all their kids in school. And so it just keeps going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's like, that's all that people can actually consider, because that's what you're educated on. It becomes like this illusion of choice, right? I remember I made a post once that was like, you don't have free choice, right? And of course, all the Gen people are like, well, you always have a choice. But it's like, and we talked about this last week even, right? Like, your idea of choice is if, you wake up and in front of you is just either blue or red, and this is all you see. This is all you have as far as choice. What if you want purple? What if you want green? Like, you're not actually making a choice. You're not actually understanding, what does blue represent? What does red represent? Like, if you woke up in a room where all that you saw in front of you was blue or red, and it was just like, make your choice.
Or you wake up in a world where there's poverty and suffering and war, and your choice is, I have to feel good no matter what. And you act like it's your choice.
Right.
It's not a
That's-
choice.
That's a spiritual community, like, to a T. It's like, I'm so focused on my own alignment and my own vibration. And then they get stuck in this, like, okay, we need to empower and lift up and enlighten everybody else. And then you see all these, it's like, a lot of them will figure out the entrepreneurial part to like make money, but then it's like, they're just attracting other people that
But the entrepreneurial part that they figure out is just go tell everybody to focus on feeling good, and then associating that with giving them money, coaching, whatever, instead of actually a real solution. So like imagine if Tony Robbins just told everybody, guys, stop coming to my seminars and start your own seminars and do exactly what I did. That's how you're going to be like me.
I think he'd run out of money. Well, maybe he wouldn't run out of money, but he would not be continuing to get a lot of money from all of the seminars.
Well, exactly. Like what would people, but then who would go to that person's seminar and that person's seminar and that person's seminar? And if you're going to go to seminars your whole life to become a seminar speaker and then never do it, like, you were lying, but like this point of, so I know I interrupted you, Christine, but you're making a good point.
No, I was just saying, like, but then there's never the consideration of like the point that Mitch was bringing in, like taking into consideration the whole system. It's like, oh, now I just like don't subscribe to that stuff. I don't participate in like the political stuff, or I don't participate in the atrocities that are happening in this world. Everyone just needs to focus on love in my environment, and totally just like discounting that they're just as much as part of the abuse as anybody else, right? And it's just like you live in this little bubble of, because it's so prominent, especially like in somewhere like America, because it's like you're only marketing to like people that can see and hear your message, because they also have the money and the means to participate in like some sort of retreat or some yoga thing or meditation or whatever. But it's like, yeah, but literally the other side of the world, or even where you post these retreats, there's people who are suffering and like in poverty, and now you're just like exploiting because like, oh well, I found a way to make money, and it like, so it's like almost saying to them like, you just have to figure out the same thing that I did, not considering that their starting point is like not even like they have no access to that, because the system is, we're just keeping the system the way that it is.
The choice is really like, that was well said. The choice is really like lie or die. That's what the choice is. That's it. Like literally, it's the choice is, you can either ignore all those people and not do anything about it, or you could live in poverty. Like, okay, consider this. We're on YouTube right now. And there are certain things that you can't say on YouTube, or you get demonetized, a strike, whatever, your videos pulled, all that stuff, right? And the reason I'm using YouTube as an example is because it's like, you will not make money if this is your source of income, which is not for us, obviously, but like, if this was your source of income, you will not be able to make money if you do not go along with what we say you need to say. And so you could say, well, you always have a choice, but then your choice is fucking poverty. Your choice is death. How is that a fucking choice? That doesn't make sense. It's like, that is force. If somebody holds a gun to your head, you don't have a choice. It's like, oh, well, you could stand up to them. If you die, you're dead.
But people want to believe in this magical thinking of like, no, if I just hang on to feeling good, that in itself will guide me through everything. And it's not that I'm saying you should participate in feeling bad, but feeling good should just be the point of, okay, now I'm not feeling bad, so now I can focus on physically what needs to be done. And that's, I think, the point that people miss. And then the people who understand it, they will apply it then to, okay, well, now I need to build a business, and now I need to go sell somebody else. So they start a coaching business, they make videos and they do all this stuff. But then what are they selling? Is just selling other people on just feel good. You don't need to do anything. And
Right.
You'll notice, like, it's so easy, if you've ever done this to yourself or somebody else, to sell somebody on, it's like you could sell people on magic so easily. Do you know what I mean? Like the magic of just, if you give this person money, you'll feel good, everything will work out. And then what that creates, though, is a follower where that person always feels like they have to just constantly give to that person and be around that person. The person never empowers them.
Yeah.
So when you look at like what we're talking about, the challenge with it is people want because they're programmed to, and they've accepted it, just be told magic, like bullshit. They want to be bullshitted. They don't want to be told, oh, now I actually have to do the things and stand up and have purpose and be an actual leader in this world. They don't want to be told that. They just want to be lied to. But then the problem is, if you lie to the person, well, then you haven't supported them to do the things they need to do.
Right.
So maybe they will feel good for a while. Who knows? Maybe for the rest of their life, but it won't change anything physically. It won't change anything in this world. So even if, if you look at a guru who tells people about feeling good and positivity and all that, like that person is just a little tiny fish in the big ocean of all the sharks who are determining how the money system works.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, look at the whoever you think of, like the Jeff Bezos and the Bill Gates and the Klaus Schwab and the BlackRock and all this stuff. All of that's going on. And you really think that just by feeling good and thinking positive, you can just be totally detached and separate from all of that. But the very money that you use to pay for this seminar to tell you to feel good was a part of that game and empowers that game of the Black Rocks and the this and the, all the things that you know is not cool. And have you seen any single one positive person who didn't complain about the system in some way? You know, and I think even like Kevin Trudeau, who's like really good at pretending like nothing really matters other than just feeling good. He's like one of the best at it. Like you know what I mean? Even he at the beginning of the pandemic was like, hey guys, this is all bullshit. It's all just trying to cover up the fact that people have like super low fucking immune systems because of all the food supply and the drugs they take, which I've told you about, which is what I wrote about in that book, which is why I'm where I'm at. And I can't really say a lot about it, but this is the reality of it. Even he was saying all that. So for what reason? Why did he say any of that? Why didn't he just be like, guys, literally, it's irrelevant, any of this stuff going on, just feel good. It's just about feeling good no matter what. And like, why would you promote anybody take any action whatsoever? Why would you promote, you need to come to a seminar to learn how to feel good? Why wouldn't you just tell the person, just feel good? There's nothing else. There's no external thing. Like going to a seminar to learn how to feel good is an external activity, isn't it? You're saying some external circumstance is going to make it possible for you to then get this information so that it becomes totally internal. But that right there should tell you the mechanics of reality are not, it's all just internal. There is an interaction between internal and external. You can't you can't get around that unless you're just like, okay, now I got the feeling I want, so all logic goes out the window. I don't have to worry about physical reality. That is the trap that so many people who could be grouped together and standing up for actual change in this world, those people are now trapped within being cut off from having any effect in physical reality. That's the fucked up thing about it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, but Cam, no, you don't understand. Like I was a guru. I told people that they should just feel good. And, you know, I noticed that people, they didn't listen. They needed a little bit more. So I started these seminars begrudgingly. And, you know, like, then I got people, they just started handing me money. And I was like, well, I guess, so now you're here. So.
See, but even that, it's like, you give me money so I can get my message to more people.
Right.
But hold on. Why do you need money to do that? Why can't you just feel good internally about yourself? Because you could say, like, why do you need to share with other people? And say, oh, because it just comes from me, you know? And it's like, right, but then you still need to participate in the money system.
Yeah.
You can't just go off of the internal point and that makes everything work out, because now you look at it, don't all those people have to go to a job? Because you're certainly not telling them to become a guru and, you know, like just spread that to everybody for money. You're telling them, just give it to me and I will do something with it. You know, and like, how is that different than the government? How is that different than the elite? How is that different than anything that you do where you give money to something so that you can have a feeling in exchange and you don't really care what happens after that? You don't even think about, you know, like people want things to be cheap, but then how much does the person, it's so funny when people talk about that, when somebody would say to me, well, you should make things cost less so more people can have it. And I'm like, okay, so then how much money are you going to make? And how are you going to spend your time physically getting those cheap things to people? Are you just expecting someone else to do it? So we've been totally programmed by the system to where you're like, I mean, obviously I can't do it. Let me just give all my, let me just let the system do it. It's this total like slave robot mentality of like, let me just let things continue as is. And I'm just going to be in my own little internal hallucinatory world where somehow it's going to magically work out.
Religion's also done that to a lot of people as well, where
Right.
they feel like, you know, God has given me this ability and I'm just going to let God do his thing through me. And so it's funny because it's like, it's this really vague idea. I've talked to like a few quite a bit of religious people who have this line of thinking where it's like, God is going to just work through me. I'm just going to do my best. And whatever comes through that's what's going to come. And it's like, okay, but what's the purpose behind that? Nope. I'm just a vessel, whatever God wants. I can't see that far. I don't know. It's like, okay, but like, what do you think God wants? I can't know what God wants. So like, how are you a vessel for God? I'm just going to do what I feel like doing in this moment.
But really, in their self-honesty, they're just deciding what they're going to do. They're using mostly their feelings, some logic, some thinking to determine it. You know,
Yeah.
and like a perfect example of this is all of the outrage of the Christian community about specifically trans and LGBT propaganda towards children. Because it's like, that's not godly, you know, or that's not, you know, we have to protect children, which I agree with. But
Yeah.
they're like, but at the same time, we are not going to change the system.
It's so
Fundamentally.
refreshing that someone like you would agree with it, Cam. You know,
Well, of course I agree with it. Being a member of a what do they call it?
community.
What's the word though? Underrepresented. That's not the word I'm looking for. Oppressed community.
Yeah,
There's like a word I'm looking for. I can't remember. There's so many words I have to remember about being in this community.
Yeah.
But the sort of like the Christian sort of it's almost like there's like a lot of these Christian homesteaders now, and they're just like outraged about the LGBT and the critical race theory and all this stuff, which I get it. Like, yeah, I get the outrage about it, but it's this point of, but at the same time, I'm not going to stand up and actually change the system. I'm going to detach from it, but I'm still going to be complaining about all the stuff going on. But then my question would be like, well, but isn't that all part of God's plan? Like, if you're going to believe in God as the ultimate, like for example, why should a child not be taught critical race theory or transgender ideology when they're 5 and 6? And if your answer is because God, blah, 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 it's like, couldn't you just take that out of the equation and be like, it doesn't make sense? Why do you have to bring God into it? Because
Also,
if you have to bring
wanna
God
be
into
a
it, it's like you can't see the common sense of it yourself.
Well, it's like that person is just still a child, and whatever they think is the parent or the authority, that's what they place God as, and they're just like a little boy in an
Well,
adult
it's a
body.
cool point, because obviously people would react to that, but really look at it. It's like they don't want to say that they're the authority. They don't want to say humans are the authority.
Right, because that
Because
reminds
if you
me of
say-
Satan.
Well, yeah, and it's like, if you say humans are the authority, well, then a human can rise up and say they're the authority and they can do all the wrong stuff. And so human authority is not valid. So then it's like, okay, God's the authority. All right, let's go with that. But then do you understand, if it's not you that's the authority, it's God, and you're just going with God's authority, how do you discern when something is according to God's will, law, rules, approval versus not? Because it's not you making that determination. Oh, you just go with a feeling. The problem with that is that's what the fucking trans people are doing. They're going with their feeling. Well, they're just not attached to God. How do you know?
Right, because
How do you know it's not all part of God's plan and you're actually questioning God's plan? And it's a test to see if you'll just actually try to use your own human discernment in any way whatsoever. And the fact is, you're actually using your human discernment because how you feel, that should be that you should realize that's fucking Satan. Like, according to how you've defined it, actually that's Satan telling you, no, these trans things are bad. These LGBT things are bad. It's like the World Economic Forum is bad. It's like, that's actually just Satan telling you, see, you should make that determination. How do you know? How do you know when it's God's plan or not? Because in the Bible, it never said anything fucking about being trans.
Yeah.
Well,
also,
and
Go ahead, Mitch.
just one sec, Christine. I think it's what we're really seeing is people's having such a limited vocabulary, such a low level of processing. Because if you actually could see, like, okay, what is God's plan? If we were to put words to what would this benevolent deity want, it would just be the principles of doing what's best for everyone, giving as you'd like to receive, trusting yourself, taking self-responsibility, being honest with yourself, like setting up reality in that way. So this is God's will. It's here. God told me.
It's funny. Somebody might think that we're arrogant for saying that, but it's like, but isn't that what the other person's saying? That they know God's will. It's like, so we do know God's will. Like, we do know what are the principles that, if applied universally by everyone within themselves, because through actual choice, would create a world that's best for all. And that would be something God would like. if God were some sort of judgmental figure that determined, you know what I mean? What were you gonna say, Christine?
I was just gonna say, like, it's just so obvious that the only reason they'll say it's God's will is if it works in their favor. But their favor specifically, like not actually considering everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
actually just a
yeah.
very selfish point. It's like, oh, because I've got a beautiful family and we have a roof over our heads. It's like, oh, so everything's working out for you. Got it.
I saw this, I
Well
put this
said.
post, remember that whole thing about, I don't know if we talked about this already, but remember that whole thing about the 500 cases in Chicago where the kids are being abused and all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
And it was
600.
like, there was 600, there was some report about it, and I posted that, and someone in my comments wrote, oh, praise God for this, and I was like, I just commented back, like, what does God have to do with it? Like, clearly they meant, I would assume, that praise God that this is being exposed.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah,
Or
where
maybe
was
like,
God? Where was God before?
That's what, see, but that is the point. You never go, okay,
Yeah.
but so if God could get it exposed, why couldn't he have stopped it?
Right.
Well, people
No,
make
no.
choices, but so then how did he expose it? Because wasn't that people making choices? What had to do with people? What had to do with God? I mean, was it people making the choice? So it's only if people do bad things, it's the person choosing it. If something good happens, it's God doing it.
right.
That makes zero sense.
Or it's like
because
the devil if it's bad. It's like this is Satan's work, because I just saw today, apparently there's this TikTok trend going around. It's very dangerous. It's like there's 3 people. So then the 2 people on the outer edge, they'll jump and then they'll land, but then they'll make the person in the middle jump and then they'll knock their legs out from underneath them. And then this person just like falls flat on their back. And like apparently 2 people have died because they literally snapped their neck. So anyways, I was watching this video because people are like, hey, like warn your kids not to do this because it's like all these young kids that are doing this trend. And people in the comments literally like, this is the devil's work. This is, Satan, like these kids are possessed and doing the work of the devil. And I'm like, these are just people who are not like, no one's educating them or no one's telling them like why this is dangerous. And like anyways, it just goes back to the point, like, why does God and the devil have to be put into the justification of why these people are doing these things?
if there is God and the devil, everything bad is devil, everything good is God. That would imply you have no free will.
Yeah.
The moment you say it's the devil or it's God, where is the human element in the equation? So is your free will literally only the point of you're choosing God or the devil? And then
Probably. That's
but what does that
probably
even
what people
mean?
think.
What does that even mean? Like, do you think
So
these
it's-
children actually were like, let come into my body, Satan, and control me? Like,
It's red or blue. That's it. That's all you get.
it makes no
right?
sense.
It's-
They don't
it's-
look at the mechanics of it. It's like if you were a plumber and you came to my house, I would not want you to mess with my plumbing. Because you couldn't apply that kind of logic to
Yeah.
plumbing. It
Yeah.
has to be this is how the pipes flow, and you connect this one, it goes that way,
Clog
connect it that
equals
way.
devil.
The devil's got your pops, man.
They
I'm
just start
sorry.
like
There's-
praying. You're like,
There's nothing I
what are
can
you
do
doing?
about it. The way that that's described of like this is the work of the devil, like watching this TikTok trend or whatever. It's almost like to me, the way that reads is like you're looking at what how we'll look at like tribes, ancient tribes or whatever, and think like, oh, how quaint. Oh, they didn't know anything about the world then. And like it would be like their elders describing to the children in a way where it's like, I don't know, when you do bad things, it's like that's not you. Like you're having a misunderstanding, but like they didn't know how to explain it, so they're just like, you're it's the spirit of the devil moving through you. That you shouldn't do it. Don't choose that. Okay, so
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you saw, I'm trying to remember what this point was. Kate and I were talking about yesterday while we were driving. I mean,
Was
I
it
can't remember what
sushi
it was.
related?
No, it wasn't sushi related. It
AI?
was something about
Ads.
Mythology.
but it's relevant to this in the sense that she was saying how people believe a certain point. We're just discussing it, and I was like, that's like the same point of if you spill your salt, you need to throw it over your shoulder because otherwise some bad thing is going to happen. It's like it's the same thing. People
Yeah.
don't realize that's the level at which you're still operating. But it's this interesting point where they see the bad things in the world. And then it's like, oh no, I'm aware of all that bad stuff. I don't like that bad stuff. I don't agree with it. So now I've found the reality. You know, like I'm a good person. I don't do that stuff. And so the believing in God is just the thing of saying like, I'm a good person. I don't do those bad things. I don't agree with it. But they don't look at the details of how by existing in this world, they're still giving permission for those things to allow, because they're not, but it's like you're not in the game. You're not doing something practically about it. It's like being a fan in the sports arena and you're taking credit for the guy scoring the touchdown.
Yeah.
Or if the team does bad, then you're like, oh, that's because they believed in the devil or something. It's like, you have nothing to do with it, actually. They're the ones physically playing the game, and the coach and the manager's making decisions about who's going to play today, and the franchise about who traded the player. It's like, you had nothing to do that. You're just a spectator watching.
That's not true, Cam. I wore my lucky underwear today, and that's why, we won.
I started the chant. I had a sign. I waved the sign.
Yeah.
I started the
blew.
wave.
Yeah. I was like, when I saw the ball coming, so that they wouldn't catch it, and he didn't catch it. It
Right.
was
And
like,
somebody's gonna say, oh, but that's why, like the home team, they do give that energy to it's like, so no away team has ever won a game. Right. It's like, give me a break.
Well, okay. What I remember as a child growing up having that type of thinking, because I would like watch sports games and stuff, and I was also going to church, and I'm just like, I wanted to have some sort of effect in my reality. Like, I wanted things to go how I wanted them to go, but I had no fucking idea what was going on. So I'm just going to school every day, going through the system, get spit out into the world. And then I remember the first time that I ever like really went out to go and try and do something to like make money. I had no idea at all what I was doing, and it was just a nightmare. So I was like doing digital marketing stuff, and I'm just like trying to learn, you close a client and then you're like scrambling. And that was just like for years. I would just jump from thing to thing, trying to make money, trying to make things work. And then at the same time, like on the weekends, I would be like the spiritual person trying to learn about Buddhism and meditating and all this shit. And that was just my life. And then I came across Your Wish Is Your Command and, some other trainings like that. And I'm like, ooh, if I could use my mind to start creating, that'll be great. And after, I don't know, 4 or 5 years of that, I was still in the same damn spot. But I remember what it felt like to be so good at justifying to myself, like, well, no, it did work that one time. Like, I did get a deal when I was like, I had the vision. I only had $20 in my pocket, and I wanted to get that thing. And I was able to like.
But you did in that moment focus and go take the actions necessary to get it done. So in a way, being positive supports you to do that in the current system. But the problem is, it doesn't solve the negative parts that are undirected.
Right. So that's where, because it was like I had this split between when I go to work and I try and make things happen, and then also looking at, I can tell that the world is not good for most people. Like I was, living in New Jersey, working in New York every day, and you'd get out of the subway and you'd walk past a family of like, it's like a mom laying there with like 5 kids on cardboard in the fucking subway station. And you just basically walk past them because what can you do?
But that's their choice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My bad. Yeah. I should have just said, hey, come be an entrepreneur with me.
And the kids are manifesting that. And it's just a coincidence that those 5 kids were born to that same mother, and they all 5 agreed about just that's the experience they want to manifest for themselves.
Right.
Can you like think of how fucked that is to utilize that kind of argument to then sell the person on why they should just focus on feeling good and just keep coming to my seminar.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry
that is
about
like
that.
the
Don't
ultimate,
focus on any of that.
That's like the ultimate, just like savagery, of just like, yeah, no. You don't care about anybody else, anything outside of you. No. You care about giving me money. Keep coming back here. Ignore that.
Okay. But when I say but, I mean like, look at this.
Like big butts,
Big
Beaver butts.
butts. Beaver
beaver
butts.
butts.
Okay.
Taste the
1950s.
rainbow.
1950s. How old were you when you started doing that digital marketing stuff in your store you were telling Mitch? Like roughly.
19, 20.
Okay.
20.
1950s. How many 19, 20-year-olds are like, oh, what am I gonna do to make money? Okay, I'm gonna go out there and hustle and be an entrepreneur and do all that. How many? Just
It
imagine.
wasn't even a thing.
It's not, they just
Well-
like, you go to school, you get a job, or you get to a trade, or you go work at a factory, or
You work at your family's
Wait.
business.
you work at your family's business or whatever.
Yeah, probably the only way it would have been like that would be, at least how I can see it, is like, it reminds me of my neighbors. Like my neighbors, their kids have like a farm, like a wood, firewood business. So then they go, stand by the side of the road and flag people down. Hey, do you want firewood? But it's like, that was their level. That's the level of thinking, is just to put food on the table too.
Yeah.
But now that's not viable anymore. So now you got all these people who are like, no, like at your mental level, you want to be the Jeff Bezos in your mind. So you're like, now I got to hustle like him. So then there's all this information coming to you like, okay, you want to be like that? All right. You just got to fucking think about you getting what you want all the time and don't give a fuck about anything else, anybody else. Don't worry about it. Poverty doesn't fucking matter. But it's not said in that way. It's said in a way where you can still, it's like palatable. It's like,
Yeah.
well, but at the end of the day, you can't choose for them. It's like, okay, but then think about this. As a parent, let's say, and this is where it's really fucked. Okay, this is where it's dark. These spiritual people, right? Do you apply that kind of thinking about your own children?
No. 100% no.
No way, dude. You're not like, hey, I'm not going to feed you. You can manifest it by you focusing on feeling good. Like, you're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
So when it comes down to and some do. I see these moms where it's like they're single moms because they're on their feelings and all this bullshit. And then they are like, I get to spend some time with my little angel this weekend, and you're like, what are you doing all the time? And you see them like at these retreats and doing yoga and meditation and this and that and all this. I mean, you see it on Facebook or whatever, and it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like there's a child that is going to be totally fucked and like lost because you're not there supporting them and educating them. That point about that TikTok trend, but where it's like hurting people. When you have kids, if you have principles, it's like you're constantly educating your children. Hey, like something happened where Max was like listening to some music or something in some headphones, and he like bumped into Seneca, like hit her with his elbow and wasn't paying attention to what he was doing, like because he didn't see her there behind him or whatever, and she got mad and turned around and like hit him in the back, right? And then we like intervened and we were like, okay, hold on, let's slow down a moment, all right? Like Seneca, it doesn't make sense, because then he like turned around and was like wanting to fight with her, right? You know what I mean? And like we just stopped everything, slowed it down, and talked to him. We're like, that was a miscommunication. And see, Seneca, when you react like that, because she's still younger than him, you're reacting to getting bumped, and now you're gonna create more of a fight. That's gonna be there's gonna be consequence there. Someone could potentially get really hurt if it escalates or whatever. So it's an education process. We don't go, you go to your room, you hit your sister, or you hit your brother, get out of here. We're like, hold on, slow down, stop. Everybody, like, if we have to physically intervene, whatever. I mean, it never escalates beyond that exchange. Do you see what I mean? Because we stop the point, someone's there, and then we explain to them, like, okay, here's the issue. So when you go into your reaction point, then you're going to create more concept. We explain. It's not like they just figure this stuff out on their own.
Right.
And I think there's this sort of deception thing that occurs, especially on Facebook and Instagram, where it's like, you see these people presenting lives where it's like, it just seems like everything magically is just totally harmonious all the time. And it's like, they're just editing shit. That's not reality. You can't just be like, especially the unschooling, like, oh, we just unschool and everything works. It's like, you just don't ever post the negative. And we're not going around posting negative stuff either,
right.
But we're not pretending like it just happens magically. Like, we're very clear about how we educate our kids, how involved we are. And we talk about sometimes these negative things that occur as well when it makes sense to do it.
Yeah.
But that's not that's not what, so if you were trying to follow a lot of people, you would think, oh, like their lives are just perfect. And it's because they just don't ever yell at their kids or whatever. Or, you know, or they don't put their kids in school, or it's like some little tiny thing that you think is the answer, rather than realizing it's a constant daily moment by moment education process to support your kids to not get to the point where they're going to be on TikTok doing stuff for clout or likes or whatever they call it, and like hurting people. Do you know what I mean? Like that's an education. That's a lack of education.
Yeah.
And now that you're telling, hold on, and now you're trying to tell the parents, you need to go tell your kids don't do this. So you do agree that parents need to be educating their kids to some level, but only once there's a massive consequence. And the child who's doing that, they're probably lost.
Right.
They're not going to look. They're not even going to give a shit what their parents are going to say.
I was just that point that you were bringing up about sharing like the reality of things, right? Not just like only positive, but actually sharing the reality of like, hey, this takes work. I think that's what's refreshing about watching like a farmer who's an influencer, or like somebody who's like works with real physical reality, or like somebody who comes into our group even, is like, we're real. You know, like a farmer will talk to you and like, hey, you know, we're growing this crop. This is the challenge that we're having. It's fucking tough. This isn't working.
Dude, look at all the fucking work that goes into that. Like you're saying,
yeah.
To put the bread or the meat or the whatever it is, even if it's some non-meat based vegetarian thing, whatever it is,
yeah,
that person is not just feeling good. And you might be like, oh, well, like, it's like they're like beneath you or something because they haven't figured out the secret you have, but you are taking advantage and leveraging their labor through a money system. Like, I don't even know. It's like, I've talked about this before, like restaurants, like how are they even profitable?
Yeah.
Because you think about when you pay for a meal, like what it costs. And I'm like, if I were to make that at home, you know, it's like we joke about with like the cow or whatever, the milk. It's like, are we saving money? I don't think it's saving money. And I remember joking with Katie. I was like, I don't think we're saving money on eggs or whatever. You know, and she's like, oh, well, that's not what we're doing.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's not to save money.
Right.
It's to get the point you need at home. You know what I mean? You're not doing it to save. I mean, and maybe it is. I don't know what it would cost to have eggs every day because it's been a long time, you know, but we use a lot more eggs than we used to now, because we have more. But you see my point, the labor that goes into it. Okay, you spend $8 on a carton of eggs. I'm assuming, like, what does it cost? $8 for like.
Sure.
If you want like
nice eggs.
really quality ones, yeah, I'd say probably $7 or $8.
Okay, $7, $8, right? But all you have to do is go to the store with your $7 and give it to them. Right? Versus if you want those same eggs, you have to feed the chickens, you have to let them out in the morning, put them up at night. You have to make sure they have water, you know, you have to put an area where they're not going to be killed. It takes some kind of focus.
You got to chase down, what'd you call him? Stevie Ray Vaughan. If he's misbehaving.
He's gone now.
Stevie Ray doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. we chased him down. He's gone.
He lived about as long as the other Stevie Ray did. Rest in peace. For those who don't know, he died very young. But so his fate was sealed. Yeah, just look at that point when you were talking. It's like to say that it's just about feeling good and that's how it works out. But you are leveraging through a system the labor of other people.
So I want to continue
who aren't applying that point.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I want to continue that point because it's like, okay, the reality is it costs just about the same to raise your own chickens and feed them and get eggs from them every day, and it costs about the same to raise your own cow and you know, feed that so that it's going to become meat later on, and also to milk and all this stuff. It's like you're not actually saving money, you're doing more work. But the reality of it is, it's like you're paying the same amount and you have the convenience of just walking in the store and grabbing the thing. You don't have to do anything, right?
But then you're also not directing how it's made.
And you are reliant upon that system.
Right. So what happens when it breaks down?
Right. You cannot take the responsibility yourself. You're like, oh, fuck, I'm fucked. I need I need daddy. I need somebody to come in and
So
like,
so that positivity point, it's like here's how I see it. Within us, deep down, we all know that it's like in a very large way, we're not taking responsibility for this world, and there is a lot of suffering. Let's say on a very deep level, maybe you're not conscious of it, but it's there. So the positivity is this attempt to not just constantly feel bad about that point, about the guilt of it. It's like the original sin point. It's like, instead of me feeling guilty all the time, I'm just going to praise God. And it's like, so I'm always in this positive state of gratefulness and gratitude instead of feeling bad about original sin. And so
That's what it was for me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like, because then that was my journey for fucking however many years. It's like struggling. And then I'd be like, well, let me just write gratitude every day and let me write my affirmations every day. And I'd like get all these books and stuff. But then finally, I remember it like accumulated to this one point where I had just moved back to Minneapolis. I before that I was in San Diego doing some spiritual bullshit, thinking I was raising my vibration. And then I finally got to I went to the gin event because I was like, I think I have to just go to an event. Like, I don't know where the real people are. I hope there's fucking real people in this world. Because I could tell I had done the positive thinking thing and it did not work. And I'm like, and I had like a decent life. Like, I wasn't raised in extreme trauma where I had all this bad stuff, but in other ways there was traumas. So finally I'm at that event and I had met you guys. And I just remember it being like a breath of fresh air, even though it was uncomfortable. Because I remember I was like chatting with Asif, and then I think I was chatting with you, Drake, and definitely with you, Cameron, and Katie was there. And I'm like asking you guys these questions about, okay, so you're telling me like just this positive thing and like just chasing enlightenment isn't actually going to like heal the planet. And like, if I just did that, like what? But that was what they said. That was what the guru said. And you guys were basically like, look, you're programmed. Your level of programming has got you here. And if you keep doing the same thing, where are you going to be at the next event when we see you? I'm like, fuck, I'm going to be at the exact same spot. Like I had finally been through enough pain where I could face the reality of it. And what was really cool was then, Cameron, one of the first things you said to me when we were chatting in the hotel suite, and I got to meet Max and everything. And I was like, dude, I want to have kids like you guys have. Like, I can tell you guys are real. No one here is bullshitting me on some positive vision. It's more like, look, you got to actually reprogram yourself. You got to really start stepping up. And it was awesome because, Cameron, you'd said it to me. You're like, okay, so you want to have kids one day, right? Okay, that starts now. Like, you getting yourself straight, like you getting yourself clear. You gotta, like, you don't have time to waste, because every day that goes by, you're going to fuck up your kids. Even if you have them in 3 years, you have years and years and years of programming and baggage to work through that. And I could just hear the common sense of what you're saying. Thankfully, I was just like, okay, fuck, I better do this thing with you guys. And so I got TechnoTutor. And then right after that too, you guys are like, look, just do this thing called DIP and just read these blogs every day out loud. And just don't let yourself take a day off. Your mind, your old programming will come in and say, look, you don't have to do it today. They're like, just make the choice to not make it a choice. And I did that. And that was when it was like, that allowed me to really start seeing just how fucking stupid I was, because I would find myself for hours. I'd wake up in the morning, then I'd be like, no, I got to like go on a walk and like listen to an hour of Your Wish Is Your Command again. And I'd go on a walk, and then I'd come home and I was like, no, I know what I have to do. Fuck. Okay. Then I'd go to work. And then I was building and building and building. And then finally I started to see, wow, I'm not doing the things that I need to do to make the money in this e-commerce business that I was doing. And then that worked. I was like, because it's not that hard to do the thing, as long as you have the vocabulary to see it. But then the real thing hit me finally, after maybe now 3 months into TT. I remember like, okay, cool, figuring out how to make money. This is great. But then I was confronted with the fact of like, so I would chat with Cameron more and more, and he's telling me how like we live in this fucked up system, and I'm starting to listen to Bernard and everything. I'm like, this makes so much sense. Like, this is why the positivity didn't work. This is why I'd been so fucked up. This is why it was so hard for me to make money. So I'm seeing it. And then I was confronted with that point of realizing it's not just about me making my life good. I got to go now actually start to support other people to see the same thing so they can help other people see the same thing. It's like a self-replicating thing. And that was then, it was so funny because that was when I became a distributor, because I decided, okay, I want to actually make my money right. Like, I want to make my money in a good way, because just selling this shit online, selling these pillows, selling these shoe inserts, whatever the fuck I was selling on my Shopify store, like, this is not doing anything for the greater good. And
So
I've
go into
already
that for a
seen
second.
how much benefit I got from being around you guys. Of
But
like,
can you
this is
just
real
expand on
support.
that point, Mitch? That
What point?
like, how can people see the reality of, like, if you're going to participate in the e-commerce thing, there's all these people doing it who don't care about what they're selling. They're just trying to find the right way to market it, to get that click, to get that
Yeah.
payment and whatever. And they don't care who's making it, how it's being made, who's being compensated. It's about bottom line profitability. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and there's all this part of the economy that's totally undirected by principle.
Well, okay. I had one day I found a way to find really good products, and I was like, wow, it was so obvious. It's like, literally, you just use TechnoTutor for a little while on building the vocabulary, and it just became so blatantly fucking obvious what I had to do. And then I found this one product. It was these they call it like the snoring ring, and it's like this little, it looks like a little horseshoe, and you apparently put it in your nose and it stops you from snoring. And I'm watching this video ad, and they're like, you know, it's this happy couple waking up because the husband's not snoring anymore. I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. It's like $2. I could sell it for like $19.99 plus like $8 shipping. And I'm starting to sell this, and it's popping off. I'm like, oh my God, I finally did it. I finally broke through, right? And then I'm like, deep down, I'm like, I think this product is bullshit. I'm like, oh, fuck. And so I'm like, okay. And it was this feeling of guilt overcame me. I was like, I have to look. And I look at the actual reviews, and they're like, it's just total bullshit. I'm like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so I shut off the ad. And that was like a little bit of like my real self was able to come through a little bit more. And it was like, it was like a +1 for me as life. I accumulated a tiny bit more realness. But then, and then I just kept going. And then I found this like pillow. It was like a memory foam pillow. And it was this fucking ad of, it was just such bullshit, but I could justify enough. I'm like, but people need pillows. Come on, people need pillows. And that made me so much damn money. And it was because it was a pillow and it was a memory foam thing. Granted,
You know
if
what?
you come over to my house and we've had too many people here, you've been sleeping on those memory foam pillows, and people they're not very good.
I think I get this My Pillow guy now. I think I completely understand him.
Yeah.
You just
Okay.
broke it down for me.
Yeah. So I'm looking at these pillows too. And this was the next moment of reckoning that I had. I'm like, this was actually then when I'd visited UCamera because I had just become a distributor, and I had started to get some people on board, and people were already starting to change with TechnoTutor. So I was like, fuck, I can't ignore the fact that I shared this tool with people. They're starting to do DIP as well, and they're starting to change and become even more effective in their life. I'm like, fuck, that's a real result. Okay. And then I'm still doing my e-commerce store, and I'm looking at the numbers, and it's so good. But then I'm hanging out at the Copes. This is the first time I spent a week with you guys. And I first heard about COVID. 2, Chinese New Year was coming up, and it's known in e-commerce for like 10 days. Everything shuts down in China. It's their pressure release so that they all don't go insane and just die. And so I'm like looking at this, okay, am I going to scale everything back? And then am I going to restart it in the new year? Or do I just take this as a lesson that, okay, I know how to make money, great. And it was just this moment I had to really look at. And it was pretty gnarly because there was a day where PayPal froze like 25 grand of my money because they had to prove that I was delivering real products. I was also seeing how I'm spending like, $12,000 or $13,000 a day on ads, then sending money to this one factory in China where I'm banking on them fulfilling the orders. And I was looking at it, and this was another moment where I realized, okay, I can tell my physical programming has changed. Because I was looking at that and I'm like, I think I might start getting gray hair, and I think I might have a heart attack. That was like my back chat. It was like, I think I might actually like freak out. But I was looking at it, but I was like, no, okay, breathe. Okay, I'm in it. This is what's up. And I realized in that moment, I could spend my life doing this, playing this game, making a bunch of money, and then whatever, and playing this whole fucking thing. But it reminded me of that old version of myself who would go try and find the fucking jackpot, looking for the lottery ticket, just the same damn mentality, this time at bigger scale. Because when you build your vocabulary, you become more effective in the world system. So I learned, okay, I know how you can make easy 6 figures a month in e-commerce when you have the vocabulary and you know how to put the pieces together. But I looked at that and I was like, that's not who I'm going to be. And I'm like, who am I going to be? Because at that time too, I was hanging out with Cameron and Katie and seeing how they parented their kids. I'm like, I want a parent like that. I want my kids for me to be able to look at this next generation of kids and say, look, I actually am here to make a difference, like a real fundamental change in the world. And that sure as fuck is not going to happen through e-commerce and selling pillows and sending your money to China and Facebook ads and shit. And so that was cool for me, because then that was when I actually made the shift to say, look, I'm going to build this TechnoTutor thing. And then this whole new wave of people in my life, all sorts of stuff came in, but it wasn't easy per se until I built my vocabulary. And now it's become easy to do the basis of the business. Now it's my next level, and then the next level and the next level. And like, that's how I found my wife and Jessica. And that's why we were able to, then rent a nice home. And then now we're able to buy a nice home, and we now have a son and everything. And so it's like, in that whole process though, I really got to see for myself how you can so easily trap yourself and justify all these feelings of, oh, I'm going to be positive. And then you realize, wait, it's not about being positive. Great. It's just about being effective in the system. Great. And then I realized that, but then it's like, no, that's not the point either. The bigger point is we have a fucked up system. And I, for a variety of reasons, have got myself in this position where I know how to work the system. But now am I just going to sit back with that too? And then think, oh, if just enough people understood it, or enough people raised their vibration, or enough people had TechnoTutor, or enough people heard about Self-Perfected, then somehow it will magically work. Then I was like, no, because I got to see the real part where when I focused on this, it wasn't always the most comfortable, but this is where the real change happened, was when I got in my fucking car and I drove and I met with a person, either in their home or at a coffee shop or at an event or wherever. And I was out face to face with a person, getting to know them for who they are, supporting them to start to really walk that process for themselves. Basically being like Morpheus, going into the matrix, giving people the option, red pill, blue pill, and selling them on the red pill. Because people are like, oh, I want to take the red pill, but they're just fucking force feeding themselves the blue pill with the blue food dye and everything. And so that right there, that's why I'm so happy now that we have Aristotle and we'll have more kids, is because that's who I am. And that's who they're going to be, because that's what I'm modeling. Is I'm modeling the fact that, look, when you take the uncomfortable steps, when you really push yourself, it's also so much more fun, because now I can look at myself in the mirror and actually be proud of myself for the first time in my life. And now we have so many new friends for Aristotle to have, and new people in our community, and it's growing. And now the money's really coming in, where I'm like, this is awesome, because I'm not having any back chat of, oh, am I doing this in the right? Am I making China more rich or whatever? It's like, it's all actually here now. And now it's really at the next level, which is hence why we're doing the event, and why all the different things that we're doing in the community. So that's the journey.
Well,
Yeah.
hang on. Can I say something real quick to that? Because it's a really great point as far as like, you were making all this money with this e-commerce business, and then you realize like, this is bullshit, right? And like, you have a choice to make there. And this is going back to what we were saying earlier, as far as like the choice is really, am I just a part of this system, or am I real? Like you realize this is bullshit, and you're like, but I'm making a lot of money. This is going really well, and you're making the decision yourself. No one telling you, nothing happening, but you're like, no, I'm stopping the ad. No, I'm not doing this. I'm not.
And dude, isn't
participating in
that
this.
the fucking type of mentality that everyone wishes Pfizer had,
Right?
or whoever? But they all be like, well, I mean, they shouldn't do stuff like that, but I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. No, it's
And it
like,
shows who you really are. Pushing
it
yourself.
shows who you really are. It shows who you really are. It's like, okay, are you real? Are you real? What are you going to decide? Are you going to decide to be real, or are you just the kind of person who's just like, yeah, but I just need the money. I just need the energy. I know it's really good money, and I don't know how else I'm gonna. Yeah, I want to do what's best, but I'm just gonna continue doing this, and I'm just gonna focus on this, and because then, what else are you gonna compromise in? Where else are you gonna make that decision? Like, it was such a great point that you said, like, you made that decision, you cut off the ad, and it's like you had a little bit more realness to you, more genuineness to you. It's like, I'm here directing this. My being is here directing this. It's not just a feeling. It's not just like I'm being caught up in the energies and, just going along with the flow. It's like, I am here. I'm directing this. This doesn't make sense. This is bullshit. I'm taking another step towards being the best I could possibly be, being everything I am meant to be, being here to support others, being real, being like the thing that everybody wants to be, like literally that creation of just like, what is it that everyone wants to be? Everyone wants to be like, I am here. I am on this planet. I am a powerful,
happy, confident, successful, all that.
All the spiritual people are like, I am powerful. I am a powerful being. Prove it. Like you're over there like, yeah, I just made a bunch of money on e-commerce, and I know it's ripping people off. I don't give a fuck. It's like, you're not powerful. You're just like a fucking little demon, just sucking up the energy. And it's interesting because like Cameron was bringing up something about like the point of original sin. And something that I've noticed recently is religions changing their vocabulary, right? They're changing their vocabulary, and they're starting to integrate, what's going on Christine's screen here. Like, they're starting to integrate all of the trans stuff. They're starting to integrate, like, there are trans pastors or priests or whatever. It's like the religions are starting to adopt what's popular so that they can continue to make money and have people come to them or whatever, but they're not actually by what they originally, stood for or whatever. They're just transforming with the times and with the vocabulary, and the religion itself is becoming trans. And it's interesting because I've been reading this book, Zone 23, right? And he says the same thing in here. He says the same thing, where it's just like the religions in this book, it's like set in some dystopian future or whatever. But they said all the religions are exactly the same. It's just like, what's your flavor, essentially? And he says they all basically have to agree to the same things, because if not, then you would be persecuted as a religious fanatic and you'd be removed from the system. The religions have to upgrade with the system as well. And so they just like adopt a new vocabulary, and it's like, okay, we'll keep going.
Isn't correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there like a religion in it where it's like, it's like where it's like generic at the level of
yeah, it's like
do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it's like they just took all the points and be like, let's just get rid of all the bullshit and just make it about this. Yeah, I can't really express it because it's been a while since I read it, but
it's
like they made it the most generic, to the point.
The multifaceted one, or the one with multiple faces, whatever it is, right? And it's just, that's the religion. And
it's
so
like you're literally, your religion is, it's like literally the understanding of the religion is that I'm just praying to the thing that all religions potentially agree on as the thing that exists. And it's
Right.
like, you're literally saying, I'm just every religion, the essence of that, but there's
Exactly.
nothing specific to it. There's no actual, yeah.
Exactly.
Really, it's a really good book. Yeah.
Yeah, that I see that happening now, where people have upgraded to spirituality, and then now the religions are adopting that vocabulary as well, so that they don't get left behind. It's really interesting. But I think we were going to talk about something else, but I just wanted to bring in those points because it's like, are you real or not? Like, are you gonna upgrade with the system too, or are you actually going to make a decision
Well,
to be real?
That's where the point about the process of change occurs. And that's the story you told, Mitch, was really good, because you were showing the specific points where you had decisions, and because you had been using the tools, you were able to see it differently. And that's a change in vocabulary. It's like, I'm evaluating what I'm doing and why I'm doing it differently. I'm doing it versus on purpose, with a specific purpose, rather than just the reason, the other purpose that everyone else would have, which would be just to make money or something and ignore everything else. And this is the whole point. If everyone looked at it that way, it would be a very different system, fundamentally different.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's why we're here, everyone. And that's why you listen to the podcast, is because that's the point. Get everyone to understand and change their vocabulary through using these tools, support other people to do the same. And then that ripples out into the world. Like, if you really want to raise the vibration of the planet, this is like actually how you would raise, and it's not some esoteric raising the vibration, it's raising the level of understanding and comprehension for people to see the obvious, that
Yeah, which is quantifiable,
Mm-hmm.
like words, each individual word. Like my daughter Seneca, she's 4. Last year, she learned to recognize 2,200 words. We look at the reporting in our system, right? And that's insane if you think about it. This is why she can read really effectively. What?
She's 4 years old. She's 4, right?
Yeah. Well, she turned 4 in October, so like
she
not
just
even 4 and a
turned-
half.
She only just turned 4, right?
Yeah.
And okay, she's doing okay, dozens and dozens and dozens of times over what would be expected of her if she were 5, right?
Yeah.
She's way ahead, and this is, she only just turned 4, right? And the other cool thing is, I've been watching, you and Katie post like little short stories, and the kids will be in them or whatever. And I was watching the one that I think it was just yesterday, of like her reading, and just like, I have this book, and she's reading the title, and this one's called da 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 da, and this one's da 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 da, and this is da 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 da, and those are all the books that I have, and she's just reading to herself, like for fun, and just like, it was so cute, but also at the same time, it's just like, you could see how natural it is for her, is really fucking profound. It's because it's not this like forced thing, it's not this performance. It's not this like there's so many, it's not fake. That's what it is. It's real. It's like, it's actually real. That part in itself is so profound, because she's just like doing the thing, where like how people are always talking about like, oh, I want it to be natural or whatever. I want it to be natural. Yeah. It's like
we went. Yeah, sorry. We went yesterday about the natural one. We went yesterday to go to a bookstore, because there's this used bookstore in Louisiana, which is 45 minutes from us. And we went and we had sushi first, and then we went to the bookstore, and then afterwards we got some ice cream before we drove back home. And we went to the ice cream store, and they have written in, like chalk, on like these like chalkboards hanging up, like, it was this place where they do like the little frozen, she's called it a reverse grill. It's like, it's cold.
Yeah.
And then they do the roll, where like they roll up the ice cream, like by scraping it, right?
Right.
The toppings and stuff. And it tells you like, if you want to get that, it's like step 1, you choose the base of the flavor of ice cream. Step 2, you have mix-ins that you can choose that they're going to mix into the ice cream. And then there's step 3, which is like your toppings and so forth, right? And so I'm holding Seneca, and it's like her turn to tell the woman what she wants. And I was like, what kind of ice cream do you want? And she's looking at it, and I was like, see, what do you want? Step one. And she goes, okay, for the base, I would like sweet cream, right? And then I go, okay, what about step two? And she's like, mix-ins. I want this one, you know, and she like chose what she wanted. And then step three, right? And she can read all that. I'm not telling her what anything says. So imagine a 4-year-old where they can read the menu and they can see for themselves what they want to do and express that to the other person. She can communicate with, I'm not having to do any of that. I mean, that's a whole nother level. When we go to the restaurants, they can look at the menu and look at it while we're all looking at our menu and decide what they want and talk to the waiter and ask them like, oh no, can I have this instead? You know, and it's a different level of confidence.
What is expected of a child at that age? It's like, oh, that they're just going to rely on you. Like imagine, you know, because Christina and I were talking to somebody and they were saying like, oh, it's not natural for a child to learn to read at that age, and you're taking away their connection to nature. It's like, what the
That's
fuck?
an abused person trying to abuse.
Yeah, obviously.
Taking away their connection to nature is putting them into school for 8 hours a day,
Right.
for 12 years. Like my kids run around in the woods and play outside and jump in the trampoline, and they literally spend 30 minutes maximum of what you could say was what we replaced with school. Like when you're doing your techno-tutor, you could say that's school. Like that's the replacement, is 30 minutes of that. And then everything else is, you know, nature is not just leaves and grass. It's also sitting and reading a book on the floor while your brother is playing in the other room. Or like they'll say that's taking away that, but will they let their kid watch Disney movies? Will they let their kid watch TV? Will they let their kids have an iPad?
Yeah. Or do they just want to live in some compound where it's just like, oh yeah, we're completely secluded from everything unnatural, and so you'll never know what a car is. You'll never know, you know, like, because like how natural do you want to get, you know, like, and for how long, until what point? Until they're 16?
Katie was telling me about these people who she gets these, like, I don't know, ads or whatever for. They're like, I think that's his Instagram maybe, or maybe it's YouTube. Because we're talking about like what kind of things we get advertised or promoted on our feeds.
Yeah.
And it's these women who like live a Victorian lifestyle. Have you seen this, Christine?
No, like I've seen it a little bit on TikTok, like all these and Instagram, like homesteading. I've seen more of the homesteading ones.
It's not
like
just the homesteading. This is like Victorian, like they don't use a vacuum cleaner, like they scrub their floors, like all this stuff, right? And she was talking about that. And I was like, okay, so they do all this Victorian, you don't even use a vacuum cleaner, but you clearly have a fucking computer or phone and you're putting it on YouTube. Right, so you're totally willing to go all Victorian except for that part.
Right.
So if you were truly going Victorian, you wouldn't be on YouTube. So it's just this fucking illusion, man. But it's the same thing with the unschooling. It's like you're going to do all this stuff, but you're not really going to support your child to act. See, our point is not to get our children not in the system. It's to support them to become the most effective in it. But with principles where they're not just trying to, I don't care, I got to make money however, and I don't care how it happens. Like they're going to be very effective with their vocabulary and their understanding of things. And they can learn faster than any other kid. I mean, you give Max a book on, like right now he's running around calling himself Hades. And like I came home yesterday and he had made a piece of paper that he had taped to his chest, to his shirt, and it said Hades on it that he had written. Right. And the day before that, he was Ra.
Nice.
Right. And I'll come home and Seneca will be like, okay, so like it's so funny when I walk in the door, it's almost like I was there the whole time. And then like I'm just like, they're just like, it's like imagine like you're playing a game of Monopoly. Or there's a couple people playing game Monopoly and you walk in the door, you just got there, you've been doing something else all day. And they're like, all right, so anyways, I just landed on Park Place. So, okay, so it's your turn now. Like as if you were just like playing the game, right? I come in the house and Seneca's like, you know, like, okay, so, you know, you're Usur, okay? And I'm Heruware and Max is Ra. And like talking about all this like Egyptian mythology stuff, right? Like they know more than I knew up until like a month ago about Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology and Roman mythology. And I gotta tell you this funny thing. I already told you guys about it that chat, but we went to that bookstore yesterday, and we went there from the perspective of, Max was like wanting more books on mythology. He wanted a book on Roman mythology because
Hmm.
there's a connection when you read like Egyptian and Greek. The Egyptian gods have like Greek names because they play similar roles, right?
Yeah.
In their systems. And I was like, there's like Roman names. Like we were talking about what's like Ares, right? Is Mars,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, Zeus is actually Jupiter. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, like the planet, that's, we're talking about that's where that comes from, right? They're named after the Roman gods and so forth. So he's like, can we get a book on Roman mythology? I was like, I bet that bookstore would have tons of books on mythology. You don't have to just go in the kids section. You can look in the adult section for like mythology. I'll help you. So anyways, we went yesterday, and at first he wanted to go check out the kids to see if there's anything in there in the kids section. And it was funny. He comes back after a few minutes because I'm helping with Seneca, and he's like, I couldn't find any specific sections on mythology, but I found something similar in here. And I was like, well, what is it? He goes, there's just a bunch of books on Christianity. Right. And I started laughing, man, it's so hard. But yeah, it's just cool because they can process so much and learn so much just because they can read.
Yeah.
And I'll come home, or I'll come in from outside, or Katie will be cooking something and with Kaius, or Kaius taking a nap, and the kids are just in there reading. And it's not all they're doing all day. Then they'll be like playing together. Like we bought this game at the bookstore because it's a used bookstore, and they have like board games, like old used board game stuff. And they had this one about, they had two really cool games. Well, one of them was really cool. The other game was just one they thought that would be fun for them. And it's like this game, and it has this base that has like a little cone, and then you put this other base on top of that, so it kind of like is just sitting on top of it, like at one point, like almost like floating, you know what I
Okay.
mean? And it can rotate. Obviously, it's just like sitting there, and if you touch it, it'll wobble. And it's like, it looks like ice cubes kind of, and it's like you have these little penguins in your, it's kind of like Jenga sort of, where you put the penguins on the ice cubes, and the point is it can wobble, so each person takes a turn, and then if any penguins fall down, you have to take those into your pile, and you're trying to get rid of all your penguins, right? So when we got home, I went to go do something for a moment, and they were at the table just like playing with those penguins and playing with each other for a while.
Yeah.
The other game we got was really cool. It's called Labyrinth. I'd never seen this game before. And it's like this board, and it has these squares. So imagine like kind of like a chessboard, but it's not a chessboard, but it's like, a grid.
Mhm.
And some of the squares, it's like alternating, right? So you have like rows and columns, and every other square is like raised up, like almost like think of like embossed, like
Okay.
raised up on the board. And then the other parts are just flat, like the board themselves. And then so they're like these tiles you have that you put into all the empty spaces.
Okay.
And so what that creates is a grid where you can shift all the tiles in a row, but some rows or columns you can't, because there's like the ones that are like permanently part of the board blocking them. So you can only shift like every other row, like all the tiles in them.
Okay.
And then all the rows, like every other row you can shift. Okay. And each piece is like this little, it's like a path, like a little, like little pathway. And some of them are like, a long thing like this. Some of them are like a T, some of them are like an elbow. And basically it's like you can create a maze.
Mhm.
And so you put them all upside down, and then you turn them over. So it's like this random maze. None of it connects really properly or anything like that. And you have a character. And on some of the tiles is like these little pictures, like a ring or a map or a treasure chest or something, like just little things like that. And you get a set of cards. Everybody has a set of cards, and then you flip over. And you're trying to get that thing. So you have to get to that square, and you take turns going around the thing. And you can go anywhere you want on the path, that as long as it connects. So you can move as many places as you want, but as soon as you can't jump to something that's not connecting. And then what you do is there's an extra tile, and you push it into the board, and you push another tile out on the other side. So you're constantly changing the little available paths in the board, in the maze, to try to get your guy and help him get where he wants. And everyone else is doing it on their turn and like pushing things around. So it's a really cool, we played that for like an hour last night. Me and Katie and Max and Seneca just playing that game and playing with them, and they can comprehend it like right away. They process it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So just things like, so we do stuff like that. They're not watching TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like they're this idea that, oh, it's not natural for them to read or anything like that. It's like, but what are the kids who can't read doing all day?
Right.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Like, okay, but what if it wasn't unnatural? What if what's unnatural, the only reason it's not natural is because you don't know how to support your child to absorb the information to make it natural to read.
Right.
That's the only
Right.
reason. I mean, that's the whole thing for Technotutor itself. But that's why it's not like it's not natural to wear clothing.
Right.
That's not an argument.
Right.
It's not
It-
like, think about it. Like when you put on pants and you zip them up and you button them and you put on your shoes, that's not natural. You have to learn to do that. You have to learn how to read. So who
And-
decides at what age you should learn to read or not? The experts that want to keep your child dumb
Right.
so they can, quote, fit into society. Like, wouldn't you rather your children also have the ability? Like, if you had a 2-year-old, if you had a 1-year-old that could speak and talk to you about what they need and not cry, would you want that? Or would you be like, no, that's not natural. They just need to cry and scream and beg for things. No parent wants that.
Right.
It's natural for your child to have tantrums. So is that cool? You just want to accept that? Or wouldn't you be like, hey, what if there's a way where they didn't have tantrums all the time? Would you be like,
I
well,
like-
no, it's not natural. Kids need to have tantrums all the time. Like, no, you wouldn't say that. So what if your teenagers didn't have to go through this point of like totally rebelling and going against you and doing stupid shit and like, oh, no, it's just
Yeah,
natural
what if
for
your
them to do that.
teenager could just build a business and like have principles and do awesome things by the time they're like freaking
People mistake
11?
natural for normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say like it's the inversion of like just because it's normal doesn't make it right.
It doesn't
You
make it
know, and
natural.
they're right, yeah. And but there's like that, it's like because like even just taking like another example, it's like, oh, like everyone just suffers from anxiety now. You know what I mean? Like that's just normal. It's like, yeah,
it's
but
just
that's
natural,
not
right?
right. But it's like, no, that's not natural. Like that's not who people are. But then another thing that we saw yesterday, because we found this account of like some guy who's his account is like toddlers can read. He's using phonics, but like he's trying to like get toddlers to read as well. But it's crazy, like because he's obviously starting with the kids like pretty early, and he's using his own kid as an example. And there's people in the comments, like educators, being like, "This is so unnatural and goes against all the developmental stages of a child's progress." And it's like, wow. So it doesn't matter, like, it doesn't matter which approach you use. It doesn't matter, like, if you are doing all the right things, quote unquote. It's like, you will always have the expert or the educator come in and tell you, no, this is not natural. This is
But when
like,
and here's the thing, when you actually study all of this stuff, like Piaget and, you know, all the different psychologists and child development and all this different stuff, right?
Yeah.
When you actually start studying all that, they don't know physiologically actually what is natural. They did experiments to see what children do at certain ages, and then that becomes the standard.
Yeah.
But that'd be like, okay, that's like saying becoming a millionaire at 18 or by the time you're 20 years old is not natural.
Right.
So if someone does it, that's bad. Just because you studied the average person and you're like, developmentally, by the time you're 18, you should just be going to college. You shouldn't be having a lot of money or making money or having a business or anything like that. You know, that's not part of the natural developmental stages of being a human being. It's like, but that's because you're in a system where that has been what is created through a system. And now you're seeing the results of that and then saying that's natural.
And the funny thing is that people would actually argue that. There are people out there who would
Absolutely.
argue like, oh, an 18-year-old should not be a millionaire. They should not know. Like, even if they developed all the money themselves, oh no, that's going to spoil them. And you know,
Really?
it's
Okay,
like-
yeah. So like Warren Buffett, right? He
yeah,
shouldn't
right.
have been a
I was gonna say,
millionaire
all
at
the
that age
elite
he was,
people.
right?
Like yeah, also those people are obviously broke, right? But it's the other point that I really like that you made was just, okay, if you're going to support your child to you're not supporting your children to not be a part of the system. You're supporting them so that they can be effective within the system and change it. Where if you don't do that, you're just supporting your child to be in the system or be inferior to the system. And there's not going to be any change for them. If you're completely reacting to the system where it's just like, oh yeah, well, we don't want to do this because we don't want to be a part of the system. And you go this whole Victorian era thing, like whatever. It's just like, you're going to be fucked. You're setting your kids up to literally be fucked by the system where they cannot do anything for themselves.
correct me if I'm wrong, the same exact system
Mhm.
who's saying that it's not natural for a child to read at this age or whatever.
Mhm.
Are they not the same system that's saying your child can choose their own gender?
Yeah.
They can go onto puberty blockers. Like, okay, what is developmentally natural about halting puberty when you're puberty age?
Yeah.
But the whole fucking system of experts. So you take any of those educators and you say, would you put your credentials on the line to say that puberty blockers, gender affirming care, etc., is not natural for the stage of development of children, just like you're saying it about children not being able to read or being able to read? Would you put, and if you know they wouldn't, because they would
Yeah.
get the system coming down on them so fucking hard. So this is who was it, Brett Weinstein or one of these people? They said it so well. They said that this whole COVID thing, he made this point about all the experts. I don't remember who it was. I think it was him, but he said that all the experts, this whole COVID thing, it was them failing a gigantic test.
Mm.
And like the way he said that, I was like, man, that is such a cool point. It was like an actual real life test that occurred in reality. Here's the thing happening. All the experts at every level, every profession, every expertise, this and that, failed and got it wrong.
Yeah.
And what does that show you? So this is the same institutions and system that has produced the standards of development of children. When we have the proof, it's not even a theory. It's proof. It's real.
Yeah.
So that you don't need to, there's going to be people who want what the experts say, but that also constantly is shifting.
Right.
It's not even static. So it's bullshit. In the 1950s, they didn't say what they're saying now.
Yeah. It's not based in reality. It's just based in some thoughts, some mind, some idea, which is like the same thing that you're seeing on Instagram, on Facebook, on social media, on YouTube or whatever. It's not real. It's like, it's all basically contrived to just stimulate you, get your energy and all that. And that's why we're having like an actual event in real life, because it's real. We're real. Like, you can come see us for real and meet with us for real and see, oh, okay, everything that you guys are saying, you actually fucking do. Everything that you guys are talking about and all this, it's real. Like, okay. Mitch brought up a really great point. I remember the first time that I went to visit with you, Cam, the first time I went to visit with you at your home, because we'd hung out before, like once or twice, and then I had gotten Techno Tutor and became a distributor, and I knew the way that you were raising Max, or at least what you were telling me, I was like, that sounds like exactly what I want to do with my kids. That's how I want to raise my kids. So I was like, let me go over there so I can see this firsthand, because I wasn't raised that way. For one, I wasn't raised that way. My parents were never together. And so I didn't even know, like, how would that be possible? What would that look like? And so I went over there to see what that looks like. And not only did I see what that looks like, I realized that you were real. Like, I was there the entire week, and what you were doing and what Katie was doing and how you interacted with, it was just Max at that time, how you guys were all interacting. I was like, wow, this is for fucking real. This is the real deal. Like, you can't, like, okay, imagine, sometimes I watch movies and I'm just like, this actor fucking sucks. Like, they are trash. Like, I am not into it at all, right? And that's just like, they spent an hour doing this one scene, and then the next scene they spend however many hours, like a whole day trying to do this scene and all that. It takes them like a year to make a 2-hour movie, right? Now consider being in the presence of someone in their home for a week straight. You cannot pretend for that fucking long every single moment, especially when you have kids. Like, there are surprising things that come up all the time with kids. And it's like your natural tendencies and who you really are is going to come up, especially when something surprising or shocking or unexpected happens. Like we got accosted at that university. So some random African guy started to yell at us, and the way that you guys handled it and everything is just like, okay, I know who you really are. I know who you really are, right?
Yeah.
So okay, that supported me to see like, you guys are fucking real. I know who you are. And every event, like this event that we're going to have in June coming up, is going to be huge because it's so many distributors, TechnoTutor users, and people from around the globe who are in our community in Self-Perfected. And it reminds me of when I first started using TechnoTutor, and then you created this little group, because I was telling you about like all the things that were happening in my life, and you were telling me about like, oh yeah, you know, this other TechnoTutor user, they got this result, or something like this was happening, and they're like, and I was having this kind of feeling within me of like, is this just in my mind, or is this actually happening? And then you created this group, and it was a small group of just like a few TechnoTutor users, and we were talking to each other, and we're like, holy shit, you had that experience too? Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, so this is real. This isn't just me. It's not just in my mind. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. And, you know, it's going to be really amazing, because every time we've gone to like other events that other groups have hosted or whatever, and we've met up there, you know, we've had an amazing time where we could connect with each other. But then there was all these other people who weren't really part of what we were doing, who weren't really like into what we were doing, who in some ways they wanted to interfere, in other ways,
No, literally didn't even want to have fun.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just so everyone knows, like we got kicked out of Gin because the last time we went to an event, we had like I don't even know, like
We had over 50 people. Yeah.
like
yeah.
like partying in our suite the whole fucking time. Like obviously not during the speaking seminar part, but
Yeah.
like constantly all night long until like 4 a.m. Like no drinking, no drugs, none of that. Just like playing games, talking, eating pizza, like just that was all we were doing the whole time. And it was interesting because the other people at the event, like the old regulars, it was like they didn't know how to do that. And I mean, that should be the point.
Right.
Like imagine you went to a family reunion, right? Like where your family's there. But when you went after the reunion part, because like what do most people do? They have like a big picnic or something. That's like a typical thing, right? Like that's what my family would always do. They have a big picnic, right? And imagine before the picnic, like the whole day, you're hanging out with all those people and you're having fun and everything. And then you have the picnic and you're eating and stuff and you're having fun and you're playing games, talking, like you're getting along with everybody, no matter who comes and talks to you. It's not even like an awkward, like, oh, I'd like to talk to you. Or what do I say? It's like, you're just like, hey, what's up? And you're talking, playing, having fun. And then like afterwards, like you're staying up late, playing, having fun, talking, like the whole time you're like doing it for a whole week. That's never anyone's experience. It's like you go for a few hours, you gossip about people, and then you leave.
Right.
You know, and at a lot of these events you go to, these motivational things, like a Tony Robbins, I always use that example because it's just someone people know about. A lot of people don't know about, maybe people who listen to us, but people know about Tony Robbins, or who else is there? Like even a Patrick Bet-David or somebody. Like it's nothing to say anything negative about him per se. It's just any of these events, it's like you're there to watch the speaker and there's the event and you might connect with a few people and that's about it.
Yeah.
But our events, and even when we go to other events with as a group, it's like you have it's like a connection. It's a sense of actual community. It's like you belong to something and you're a part of something, but you're not there as a follower. You're there as an equal, because that's really what it is, a community of equals that we've all participated in creating. So when you're there, and it's not to say that somebody else might not know something about something more than you and you can learn from them and you have things you can share, but you're equal in the sense of everyone recognizes implicitly that there's no leader, there's no person who's like the best one, that we're all like, imagine you went to a party at a Tony Robbins event and Tony Robbins was at the party.
Yeah. Everybody would want to hang out with just Tony and like fuck everybody else.
Right. Versus you go to an event where you get the same level of enjoyment out of it more, really, but just from what people can relate to. But you don't have to even participate in that point. It's like you're genuinely happy to see everybody and talk to everybody and interact with everybody. Isn't that better? Because if you went to a Tony Robbins event and you went to that party and you're just there trying to talk to Tony Robbins, but everybody is, how much enjoyment are you really actually going to get out of that? Other than the vicarious point of like, well, I was near him or something like that.
Right. Right.
People can go and you can do that, but it's like, I have no interest in that.
Yeah.
You know, I want to do real things. So this event that is coming up in June, right? It's almost challenging to promote, because it's like, if you haven't experienced being a part of the group in the group dynamic before, you really have no idea what you're missing, you know? And so unfortunately we have to revert to saying like, you know, it's like, you're just going to feel fucking amazing. And the design of it is you're going to take that back into your life, because you're still a part of the group and you can still get, like, I don't want to say accountability, but like support with moving forward. Do you know what I mean? It's not just a go get motivated, charged up. It's not a person just motivating you. There can be a certain level of that, which is fun, but there's also the point of actually seeing and learning and being a part of something that when you go home, you can apply it for real. That's my take on it. And I mean, I know it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, obviously we're bringing the kids because they love to do stuff like that, you know. And just one more point on the kids, it's like anybody who wants to say, oh, it's unnatural to read or whatever, anything like that we would do with the kids in terms of their education, it's like anybody who's around our kids is like, wow, these kids are so cool. When we go out and about, like we went to the ice cream shop, when we go to the bookstore, when we go to the sushi restaurant, like everybody is interacting with our kids, and just like it's like no one is like, oh, these kids are unnatural. It's like they're like, wow, these kids are amazing.
Dude.
So there's no like you know what I mean?
So on that point, it's like, how many adults like do not want to interact with kids all the fucking time? Or it's just like they see a kid and they're like, hi, I don't know how to interact with you, like all this stuff, right? And yet your kids are so effective and so advanced that they're just like, okay, hey, I'm gonna talk to you, and they show what they're capable of, and then people are like, fuck, this is cool. I want to hang out with you. I want to interact with you. I want to be around you, because like your kids are just so, I want to say amazing, but like they're more than just amazing. They're advanced. They're cool people. They're like, they understand
what people would
things.
actually want their kids to be if they didn't just have programs running of wanting to suppress them. And I know we got to end shortly because we all have time constraint, but I'll just say this about the event. Like if at the very least you want to come and be around all of us to see like, hey, is this real? And also kind of what you may not realize also, or maybe you do, is like just being around the point, we can support with how to make that real. It's like when you said, Mitch, you came and visited, or when Drake, when you said you came and visited, you saw the reality of it. And it's not like, oh, you're getting the special downloads. It's just like you start to see the reality of it, and we can support with, oh, here's what I would suggest you look at or shift or whatever. It's just small things sometimes, simple things, but that you can't do at the same way and the same level of when you're just remote, when it's online. When it's physical, it's just a lot different. It's the same reason why you'd rather go to a party at your friend's house than go to a party on Zoom. I mean, it's a fundamental, you can learn stuff, you can hear stuff and think about stuff from a Zoom for like a podcast or whatever, but it's not the same thing as a physical reaction or interaction. It's another element of what's going to be what is required for you to move to that next point. Any other points you guys want to add, Mitch, before we
Is gonna be so hype, but in a way that's designed so that you bring that with you back home. And instead of afterwards, like everyone after these other motivational events has a crash and then they're looking for the next one, ours is designed to strengthen you. Well, you really strengthen yourself. And then you take that with you. And we'll make sure you have plenty of training and all that stuff and notes to implement. So when you go back, you can then create that for yourself, or for those of you who already run clubhouses or have meetings in your local cities, you can then take that and really bring it to the next level. So then it's like that, every weekend of your life. So.
Yeah. Do you really want to have FOMO? Like after, when we're all there and we're posting videos and pictures, you're going to be like, if you didn't come, you're going to be like, wow, I made a huge mistake. And I know that like even seeing Drake like go to your place, Cameron, before we got together, I was like, man, it would be so cool to like be around these people in real life. And that's actually what reconnected Drake and I was like, hey, I want to hear about your experience with Cameron, Katie, and the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and now it's like we actually have our own event that you get to be at and actually interact with our whole community and not have it be like, oh, we're going to a gym event that's like another event. It's like, this is our event and you get to be a part of it.
So if you're a single guy or girl, right, guy or gal, if you're single and you're like, man, how do I get somebody to notice me? Come to this event. Because first off, we have a singles thread, right? And we've had multiple people come into this group and become married.
Every single time that we have an event and people come to it, it's like almost like Katie's, we call it the Katie effect. Like so if you're at the event and you want support with, hey, getting into a relationship, what do I need to do? What do I need to change, shift, or who should I talk to? Like, talk to Katie, right? She's going to probably be like, oh, there's too many people to talk to. But also I just wanted to add real quick, this is my last point. Like, why I'm going to the event is because I want to be around all the people. Like, I know I'm saying it like, hey, we have these amazing kids, you can come be around us and learn from us or something like that. And that's what you can get from it. But what I'm getting out of it is going and being around not just you guys here on the podcast, but everybody else, even the people I've never met before who are coming in. Like, I want to be around other people that are in this group. That's what I get out of it. So that's what I wanted to say. Anything else?
I mean, just
I'll tell you this, the hotel block is almost filled up. And so we're going to announce it this week when the final cutoff date is. But just get your ticket right now. I mean, we had a bunch of people. I didn't think that many people from the Friday night call would have signed up.
Yeah. It's funny because it's always like you hit these events where they're like, oh, you got to get it before it sells out. And I was like listening to what you guys did on the last call. And I'm like, oh shit, like that's not like a joke. Like, oh, hurry and get your ticket now. It's like, a lot of people bought after that one, so that was good. That was a really good call.
Yeah, it's the people that want to be there, people that want to level up. Why would you not surround yourself with those people in 2023? So that's it from me.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Cool. Bye everyone.